We are looking into yet another claim about The Simpsons predicting a big news event. The story this time is that the iconic TV show eerily predicted the outbreak of the coronavirus.
The Simpsons has done more than make us laugh. It has predicted real-world events with creepy accuracy. From political upsets to tech revolutions, the show has a strange way of getting things right. Now, fans are buzzing about a new episode that hints at a major event possibly unfolding this year.
It looks like you're burning money. I know.
Is it just another coincidence, or something more unsettling? Hop in. Let's break down the prediction that's turning heads and explore whether The Simpsons has done it again. Before we reveal the 2025 prediction, let's explore why The Simpsons has become the internet's favorite crystal ball. The Simpsons' extraordinary legacy. When it comes to predicting the future, no television show has left a cultural footprint quite like The Simpsons. More than just a source of laughter, this animated powerhouse has become a recurring headline maker for its amazingly accurate portrayals of real-world events, years, sometimes decades, before they happen. From Donald Trump's presidency to breakthroughs in technology and even international scandals, The Simpsons has stunned the world with how often its jokes morph into reality. First airing in 1989, The Simpsons, created by Matt Groening, quickly rose from quirky cartoon to cultural force. With over 700 episodes across more than 3 decades, it has cemented itself as one of the most enduring and influential shows in history. But its true staying power lies in how it reflects, and sometimes eerily predicts, the shifting tides of society. The show combines razor-sharp wit with social commentary, managing to dissect everything from politics and pop culture to science and corporate greed. While plenty of comedies take stabs at current events, The Simpsons has a unique talent for landing those punches so well in advance, they later feel prophetic. The question that fascinates fans and skeptics alike is simple: how does a cartoon get it right so often? According to media experts interviewed by The Guardian, one explanation is statistical inevitability. If a show runs long enough and covers enough ground, some coincidences are bound to occur. But The Simpsons goes far beyond vague resemblances. Its predictions are frequently striking in their detail and timing, from specific inventions like smartwatches and autocorrect to momentous events like Disney's acquisition of 20th Century Fox. These aren't just lucky guesses, they're uncanny parallels. In a 2023 interview with Reuters, executive producer Matt Selman addressed the phenomenon, insisting there's no supernatural insight at play. Instead, he credits the writing team's deep understanding of the world and their ability to extrapolate social trends to logical extremes. The writers, many of whom come from academic backgrounds in mathematics, history, and philosophy, craft storylines not based on fantasy, but on reality taken a step further. Their humor is grounded, exaggerated just enough to be absurd while still tethered to truth. That approach, over time, has turned the show into more than entertainment. It's become a cultural artifact, scrutinized, paused, and rewatched for hints of what's to come. On social media, fans dissect episodes frame by frame, searching for hidden predictions like modern-day conspiracy theorists with remote controls instead of magnifying glasses. And because the show has touched nearly every aspect of modern life, its predictions often feel less like flukes and more like calculated warnings hiding in plain sight. Even with all the buzz, The Simpsons never loses its irreverent charm. It never claims to be prophetic. It simply holds up a mirror to society, and sometimes that reflection gets startlingly real. As we move forward, we'll take a closer look at the moments where The Simpsons didn't just echo reality, but seemed to beat it to the punch. So, how did this yellow-skinned, donut-loving family turn into accidental prophets? Let's start by examining some of their most astonishing hits. The Trump presidency prophecy. No single prediction from The Simpsons has captured global attention quite like the moment it appeared to foresee Donald Trump's presidency. What began as a sarcastic throwaway line in a futuristic episode would, 16 years later, transform into one of the most infamous examples of pop culture prophecy. a moment where comedy blurred into clairvoyance. The episode in question, Bart to the Future, aired in the year 2000 during season 11. It projected viewers into a time where Lisa Simpson has become President of the United States. Faced with an economic crisis, she casually mentions that her administration is inheriting quite a budget crunch from President Trump. At the time, Trump was a flashy real estate tycoon and the face of American excess, known more for his bankruptcies and media appearances than serious political ambition. The line seemed like classic Simpsons-style hyperbole, absurd enough to be funny, but not something to take seriously. Yet in 2016, that throwaway gag became eerily real. Donald Trump was elected as the 45th President of the United States, igniting global fascination with The Simpsons and its so-called gift of foresight. According to Snopes, the Trump reference was partly inspired by his brief flirtation with a presidential run back in 1999. But what makes this moment so remarkable isn't just the name drop, it's the context. The writers didn't just imagine Trump as a punchline, they depicted the aftershocks of his presidency as chaotic and burdensome. That interpretation, made years before his campaign, mirrors the polarization and financial turbulence that marked much of his real-world administration. And the parallels didn't stop at dialogue. Perhaps even more hair-raising was a visual cue in a later episode, a shot of Trump descending an escalator, waving to a cheering crowd. It bears an uncanny resemblance to real footage from Trump's actual 2015 campaign announcement at Trump Tower, down to the positioning of people and the movements of the crowd. As confirmed by Reuters, the similarities between the cartoon and reality fueled a frenzy online, with fans sharing side-by-side comparisons that made it nearly impossible to dismiss the coincidence as random. In interviews, writer Dan Greeny explained that the line was meant as a satirical jab, a warning about how extreme American politics could become. He never expected it to manifest, but it did. And while some of the details, such as Lisa's purple outfit resembling Kamala Harris's attire during the 2021 inauguration, are likely coincidental, they only add to the show's mystique. Each layer of alignment turns skepticism into awe. What makes this prediction so powerful isn't just that it came true, it's how The Simpsons grounded it in plausible cultural foresight. By exaggerating reality just enough, the show anticipated where things could logically and disturbingly go. The Trump episode wasn't just funny, it was prophetic. And it raises a chilling question. If they saw that coming, what else have they already warned us about? Let's turn the page to a different kind of prophecy, one rooted not in politics, but in technology. Smartwatches and video calls. Long before smartwatches became everyday accessories and video calls turned into a lifeline for modern communication, The Simpsons quietly slipped both into a single 1995 episode, decades ahead of their time. In what is now considered one of the most technologically prophetic moments in the show's history, Lisa's wedding from Season 6, Episode 19, gave viewers a glimpse of a near-future world where wearable tech and face-to-face virtual chats were completely normal. What makes this section so fascinating isn't just the prediction itself. It's how the show envisioned the emotional and practical realities of these devices with uncanny accuracy, turning science fiction into social foresight. The episode, set in a speculative 2010, introduces Lisa's fiancé casually speaking into a wristwatch, using it to make a phone call as though it were second nature. At the time this aired, wristwatch phones were a fantasy mostly confined to comic strips like Dick Tracy or early sci-fi films. Smartphones hadn't yet exploded into the mainstream, and the notion of miniaturizing phone capabilities into a device worn on the wrist seemed far-fetched to most. Yet here it was, embedded seamlessly into the storyline, not as a futuristic gimmick, but as a functional, everyday tool. Fast forward to 2014, when Apple unveiled its first smartwatch, and suddenly, what once looked like animated exaggeration became a tangible, everyday reality. As confirmed by Snopes, while The Simpsons didn't invent the concept, The writers captured the very moment in history when such a device would go from novelty to necessity. The scene didn't just showcase a gadget, it predicted the normalization of wearable communication, highlighting the show's remarkable ability to identify the direction of tech evolution before the rest of the world caught on. Even more striking is the portrayal of video calling. In the same episode, Lisa has a heartfelt conversation with Marge, not in person, but via a screen. This was years before Skype, FaceTime, or Zoom would turn video conferencing into an integral part of both professional and personal life. Back in 1995, video calls were experimental at best, showcased mostly at high-tech expos and trade shows. But The Simpsons didn't frame it as a high-stakes boardroom feature or a novelty tech demo, they made it personal. A mother and daughter talking face-to-face from different locations, as naturally as if they were in the same room. According to BBC and The Verge, the technology for video calls was in development during that era, but far from mainstream. Yet the show managed to not only anticipate its wide adoption, but also how it would reshape the way we maintain relationships. By placing video calling in a warm, domestic setting, The Simpsons captured its emotional potential, not just its technical function. These glimpses into the future weren't treated like spectacle, they were woven into the background, grounded in human behavior and cultural trends. That's what makes them so powerful in hindsight. In a world just beginning to flirt with the idea of digital transformation, The Simpsons imagined what life might feel like once the transformation was complete. As we now live in that very future, with smartwatches on wrists and video calls spanning continents, this episode feels less like satire and more like a quiet blueprint. But the predictions don't stop here. Let's move from communication to crisis, as we explore the episode that eerily foreshadowed a global pandemic. The Pandemic Parallel. One of the most hauntingly relevant predictions in The Simpsons' long run came in the form of a flu outbreak that mirrored the chaos of the COVID-19 pandemic decades before it struck. This moment wasn't buried in some obscure episode, nor was it dressed in over-the-top science fiction. It unfolded, satirically and disturbingly close to reality, in the 1993 episode Marge in Chains. What makes this moment stand out isn't just that it dealt with a contagious illness, but how it nailed the emotional, social, and structural collapse that can follow such an event, capturing the collective anxiety that the world would face nearly 30 years later. The episode introduces the Osaka flu, a fictional virus that originates in Japan and spreads through Springfield after a factory worker coughs into a shipment of juicers. Though the logistics are exaggerated for comedic effect, the core message rings uncomfortably true. Globalization comes with vulnerabilities. As confirmed by Reuters, the show didn't directly predict COVID-19, but it accurately captured the emotional atmosphere surrounding a pandemic. Panic buying, misinformation, hospital overcrowding, and the media's tendency to amplify hysteria. When COVID-19 arrived fully in 2020, fans began resurfacing clips from this episode, stunned by how closely the Springfield scenario resembled real-world headlines. But the uncanny parallels don't stop with the virus. In the same episode, a desperate crowd looking for a cure accidentally knocks over a truck containing a swarm of bees, releasing them into the town. At the time, it played like absurdist comedy. Yet in 2020, as COVID swept across the globe, another bizarre story hit the news: the appearance of murder hornets in the United States. While the connection is purely coincidental, confirmed by Snopes, fans couldn't help but marvel at the overlap. In a single storyline, The Simpsons unintentionally touched on both a pandemic and an invasive insect scare, amplifying its reputation as a prophetic powerhouse. And then there's the blink and you will miss it moment from a different episode, Lisa's Sacks in Season 9, Episode 3. In a short scene, a book titled Curious George and the Ebola virus appears on screen. Ebola wouldn't dominate global headlines until the TW-1014 outbreak, over 15 years after the episode aired. The reference was subtle, almost throwaway, but it reinforced the show's pattern of using dark humor to tap into latent fears that hadn't yet reached public consciousness. What ties all these moments together is the writer's ability to draw from the social undercurrents of their time, fears about disease, globalization, and institutional preparedness, and spin them into stories that, while comedic, hold a mirror to our collective vulnerabilities. Marge in Chains wasn't a crystal ball. It was a sharp piece of satire that just happened to hit uncomfortably close to the truth decades later. As lockdowns stretched across nations in 2020, the episode found new life online. People shared clips, made memes, and debated whether this show had somehow seen the future. Whether coincidence or uncanny foresight, the parallels sparked a deeper appreciation for how The Simpsons captures the pulse of modern anxiety, and pandemics are just the beginning. Let's shift gears and explore another uncanny prediction, one involving a media empire merger that would reshape the entertainment landscape. Disney's Fox acquisition. In the most jaw-dropping moments in The Simpsons' long history of uncanny predictions, which didn't involve world politics, global crises, or scientific breakthroughs, it unfolded through a blink-and-you-miss-it corporate joke that came true in spectacular fashion. In a single frame from the 1998 episode When You Dish Upon a Star, viewers saw a sign outside the 20th Century Fox studio reading, "A division of Walt Disney Company." At the time, it was a quick comical jab, bold, absurd, and meant purely for laughs. But 21 years later, this exact scenario unfolded in real life when Disney finalized its $71.3 billion acquisition of 21st Century Fox in 2019, a historic entertainment merger that redefined the industry. What began as a visual gag in a cartoon became one of the most widely cited examples of The Simpsons foreseeing the future. This prediction didn't just hit the mark, it hit it with creepy precision. According to the BBC, Disney's purchase included Fox's film and television divisions, bringing major franchises like The Simpsons, X-Men, and Avatar under the Disney umbrella. The irony wasn't lost on fans. The show that joked about being owned by Disney ultimately became a Disney property itself. The 1998 joke was suddenly resurrected, spreading like wildfire across social media as proof that The Simpsons could, quite literally, predict the future, down to the logos. However, what makes this moment more than a clever coincidence is the context behind it. In the late 1990s, the media landscape was already beginning to shift. Companies were consolidating, and whispers of mega mergers were not uncommon. Disney had acquired ABC in 1996, a move that hinted at its growing ambition to control every corner of the entertainment map. The writers at The Simpsons, always tuned in to cultural and industry trends, used this growing pattern of corporate expansion as comedic fuel. Their joke about Disney owning Fox was not a prophecy pulled from thin air. It was a razor-sharp satirical commentary on a future that felt unlikely, but not impossible. It was a visual background gag, easily missed but unforgettable in hindsight. As Reuters reported, fans only revisited the episode after the merger was finalized, pulling the clip from the archives and marveling at its accuracy. The Disney-Fox merger moment also deepens the conversation around how The Simpsons mirrors real-world power dynamics. The show has long critiqued corporate monopolies, media empires, and unchecked ambition. That it anticipated this seismic industry shift speaks volumes about its writers' ability to decode trends long before they explode into public consciousness. But the media isn't the only realm where The Simpsons has looked ahead. Up next, we move from boardrooms to the playing field, where one episode eerily calls the outcome of a major international sporting event. The U.S. Curling Glory. The magic of The Simpsons isn't just in its political jabs or sarcastical takes on society. It's in how the show has consistently managed to predict history's more unexpected, feel-good triumphs. One of the most delightful examples of this came in 2010, when the episode Boy Meets Curl aired. In it, Homer and Marge become last-minute additions to the U.S. Olympic curling team, somehow leading the squad to an improbable gold medal victory over Sweden. At the time, the storyline felt like a fun parody of Olympic underdog tales, weird, exaggerated, and as improbable as you'd expect from a cartoon. Yet, 8 years later, life imitated art in a way nobody saw coming. In 2018, the real U.S. men's curling team pulled off a stunning upset at the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics, defeating Sweden to win the country's first ever Olympic gold medal in the sport. Led by John Schuster, a four-time Olympian who had previously endured public criticism and repeated defeats, the American team's victory was a true Cinderella story, one that uncannily echoed the plot of the Simpsons episode down to the opponent and the unexpected nature of the win. As NBC Sports reported, the triumph sent shockwaves through the sports world and sparked a newfound interest in curling across the United States. What makes this prediction stand out isn't just that The Simpsons got the outcome right, it's how it captured the very essence of the moment. Curling, once dismissed by many as a fringe winter sport, was portrayed in the episode with a level of respect, humor, and underdog optimism that reflected the growing interest it had begun to earn in the U.S. by the late 2000s. As The Guardian noted, curling clubs were quietly gaining traction across the country, with small communities embracing their slow-burn strategy and team dynamics. The show's writers, always alert to cultural ripples before they become waves, seemed to sense this shift and turned it into a heartwarming Olympic fantasy that would later mirror real-life triumph. Following the 2018 Olympics, clips of the episode resurfaced online, fueling conversations about whether The Simpsons writers merely have great instincts or something close to a crystal ball. But curling wasn't the only arena where The Simpsons saw the future. Up next, we'll look into a musical prediction that had fans and critics doing a double take. Cypress Hill's orchestral performance. In an episode packed with musical chaos and festival humor, The Simpsons delivered one of its most genre-bending predictions to date, one that would take nearly 3 decades to come true. Homerpalooza, which aired in 1996, wasn't just a playful dive into the world of rock festivals and alternative music. It also featured a brief but unforgettable gag that would go on to blur the lines between parody and prophecy. In the episode, the rap group Cypress Hill is accused of booking the London Symphony Orchestra, possibly while high, before launching into a hilarious orchestral rendition of their hit Insane in the Brain. At the time, the idea of a gritty hip-hop group joining forces with a centuries-old orchestra seemed so far-fetched, it was the perfect punchline. And yet, in July 2024, what once played out as absurd caricature materialized in stunning real life. At London's iconic Royal Albert Hall, Cypress Hill performed a full concert with the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra, bringing their most iconic tracks to life with a sweeping symphonic backdrop. As confirmed by BBC and Rolling Stone, the event was more than a novelty. It was a bold, sonically rich celebration of how far hip-hop had come and how fluid musical boundaries had become. The group's frontman, Be Real, even credited The Simpsons for the idea, stating that the show had sparked conversations over the years that ultimately led to this historic performance. The brilliance of this prediction lies in its timing and context. In the mid-1990s, hip-hop was still battling for mainstream respect, while classical music represented the height of tradition and conservatism. Pairing the two in any serious capacity would have sounded like a joke, which is exactly how the show presented it. But behind that humor was an observant, creative team that recognized the cultural shifts brewing beneath the surface. As NME has noted, the 90s were a turning point for genre experimentation, with artists beginning to dip their toes into collaborative waters that once seemed off-limits. The Simpsons, always a step ahead, picked up on these undercurrents. By choosing Cypress Hill, a group known for its countercultural edge, to perform with an orchestra, the show tapped into a then-nascent idea that music didn't have to live in silos. When the real-life performance happened in 2024, it wasn't just entertaining, it was symbolic. The once unthinkable union of rap and symphony had become not only possible, but celebrated. Clips from the 1996 episode quickly resurfaced online after the show, igniting widespread recognition that The Simpsons had once again called it before anyone else. But if you think predicting musical crossovers is impressive, Wait until you see what The Simpsons had to say about Elon Musk and what came next. Elon Musk's disruptive vision. When The Simpsons aimed at tech's most controversial innovator, it didn't just parody Elon Musk, it eerily captured the very tension that would come to define his legacy. In the 2015 episode titled The Musk Who Fell to Earth, the show welcomed Musk into Springfield not as a villain or a hero, but as a well-meaning disruptor whose radical ideas spark awe, confusion, and unintended chaos. It wasn't just a guest appearance, it was a layered exploration of what happens when big vision meets small-town reality. As the script reveals, this episode stands out because it didn't focus on just one of Musk's ventures. Instead, it distilled the entire Musk phenomenon, his ambitions, peculiarity, and polarizing impact, into one animated satire that now feels more prophetic than playful. The storyline begins with Musk descending from the sky in a private spacecraft, a nod to his real-world SpaceX endeavors that, back in 2015, were still viewed by many as wild science fiction. But inside the show's exaggerated premise lies a surprisingly accurate depiction of Musk's playbook. He teams up with Mr. Burns to redesign the Springfield nuclear power plant with futuristic efficiency, an obvious metaphor for Tesla's clean energy mission. However, just like in real life, those innovations come at a cost. Layoffs, economic ripples, and public backlash follow, mirroring the exact consequences we've seen in Musk's 2020s ventures, from mass job cuts at Twitter now X to volatile Tesla stock movements and controversial business restructurings. The episode's blend of admiration and warning is what makes it resonate even more in 2025. Forbes reported at the time that the episode was less about mocking Musk and more about exploring the double-edged nature of disruption. That narrative has only become more relevant as Musk's ambitions have grown more extreme, from SpaceX's Starship test flights aimed at Mars colonization to Neuralink's first human trials. As Space.com recently highlighted, the groundwork for Mars habitation is no longer theoretical, and The Simpsons seem to catch that wave of cosmic ambition before the rest of pop culture did. Even smaller gags in the episode carry weight in hindsight. A futuristic birdhouse labeled Home Tweet Home now feels like an odd coincidence, or maybe a sly premonition, of Musk's turbulent acquisition of Twitter in 2022. Though The Simpsons couldn't have predicted the specifics, this detail echoes Musk's talent for turning even the most ordinary platforms into global battlegrounds for free speech and tech control. The show's later episode, The Marge Ian Chronicles, also aligned with Musk's obsession with Mars, showing two young characters preparing for a colonization mission backed by a government-private partnership, eerily close to the public-private dynamic fueling SpaceX. What's most remarkable is how The Simpsons managed to turn Elon Musk into a narrative symbol of 21st century disruption long before his name became synonymous with transformation on a planetary scale. And if this depiction hits so close to home, wait until you see what The Simpsons had to say about 2025 itself. The 2025 prediction: AI's turning point. What makes this part stand out isn't just the prediction, it's the timing. Right as the world enters a crucial chapter in the AI revolution, The Simpsons released an episode that eerily captures the exact cultural crossroads we now find ourselves in. In Season 35, Episode 12, titled Lisa Gets an F1, which aired February 18, 2024, the quiet town of Springfield falls under the spell of an AI-powered racing simulator. The machine doesn't just simulate driving, it learns, adapts, and ultimately surpasses every human competitor, igniting a town-wide debate over whether human skill still holds value in a world racing toward full automation. This episode doesn't just parody AI, it dissects it. As The Guardian noted, the humor lands squarely in the middle of today's most urgent global conversations. Leaders around the world are scrambling to regulate artificial intelligence, with the European Union's AI Act scheduled to go into effect this 2025, marking one of the first major legal frameworks designed to keep up with machines that think faster than we do. While previous Simpsons episodes poked fun at clunky rogue robots, Lisa gets an F1 zeroes in on the exact kind of advanced generative AI that's already transforming industries, from coding and writing to logistics and healthcare. Springfield's response mirrors the real world's divide. Some townsfolk embrace the AI driver's efficiency and precision. Others, led by characters like Homer and Moe, resist the idea that machines could render human effort irrelevant. That tension between awe and alarm is what defines the 2025 AI landscape. As highlighted by Forbes, OpenAI, Google, and other tech giants are unveiling tools so powerful that they're raising existential questions about everything from employment to ethics. The episode doesn't pretend to offer answers, but it doesn't need to. Its genius lies in how it reflects the cultural fault lines forming around artificial intelligence, not just in Silicon Valley, but in classrooms, factories, and even living rooms across the globe. And then there's the subtle brilliance of how the episode portrays the AI itself, not as evil, but indifferent. It doesn't seek to dominate, it simply outperforms, making the human characters question their relevance. That nuanced depiction aligns with 2025's growing debate. Is AI here to help us or replace us? Time magazine's reporting on AI regulation emphasizes this exact concern: how to strike a balance between innovation and oversight before the technology defines society more than society defines it. Whether or not The Simpsons intentionally predicted a pivotal moment in AI history is up for debate. What's clear is that they once again tuned into the cultural frequency before most of us realized the signal was changing. This isn't just a clever gag about robots winning races. It's a warning, a reflection, and maybe even a glimpse into a future we're already speeding toward. As we navigate 2025, the episode serves as a cultural touchstone, urging us to question how AI will redefine our lives and whether The Simpsons has, once again, foreseen a turning point. What do you think? Has The Simpsons nailed another prophecy, or is this just humor reflecting our fears? Or perhaps The Simpsons isn't predicting the future at all, but instead, its brave ideas are inspiring innovators, artists, and dreamers to turn Springfield's wildest satires into our reality. Drop your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.